This is kind of an interesting question. How do filmmakers film mirrors? What's up, everybody? My name's Christopher. I'm the FitDirector, and today is another episode of Watch Like a Filmmaker. And before we get started, I just want to kind of clear the air. Last Saturday, I did not upload a video. I'm sorry. But there's a good reason. Things will be changing. As you've noticed in this video and in my last video I posted, I've kind of been in a different area. It's not the normal setup that I usually do, and that's kind of part of it. I'm going to be changing things about how we do these videos and how we explore the films and content we watch. So that is a slow process for me, but it is getting there, and it's a change I can't wait to share with you. Now, I can't give you all the details just yet, but I can give you a new video. So let's continue this episode where we left off in the last one, talking about most asked questions about filmmaking. Hopefully I can answer questions for you guys, like I did in the last video, about some things behind the scenes that go on in the film industry and most asked questions. And again, today we'll be referring those most asked questions from Google. But we're going to change how we do it. So the last time we did this, we ended up on Indeed.com. And although it did answer a lot of questions about the film industry jobs, which I hope you're able to get something from our last video, I'm going to kind of change it up instead and kind of follow along the lines of what does a filmmaker. So by doing what does a filmmaker and letting Google populate the answers, I can go from those questions. So then we can kind of get a better idea on specific questions, and hopefully these help you as well. And like with every one of these Watch Like a Filmmaker episodes, if you do have another question that I don't answer in the video, which there can be millions of them of course, leave a comment down below so I can approach that in a different video for all of you. We spent enough time talking about it. Let's get into the episode. So our first question is, what does a filmmaker do? Now that is kind of a broad topic, and if I was going to get a little more specific than what Google's offering us, I'd maybe ask, what does an independent filmmaker do versus the industry filmmakers, because it can change. But a basic definition to kind of help us all out today is a filmmaker is anyone in charge of developing a film in production and then beyond. So I would say pre-production is a huge part of what a filmmaker does. Production is a filmmaker's responsibility, and I would also say that post-production and those needs of creating deliverables to streaming sites or just getting the video out to its audience. I think that's an important part. And if I can add my own personal feeling to this, I'd say a filmmaker's main responsibility is to honor the work of the people involved by getting it out to an audience so that they can share it, and also doing their best to create the best story visually they can. But to keep it short and sweet, a filmmaker is someone, like I said, involved in the pre-production, production, and post-production process of a film. Let's see what else Google has for us. So our second question is, what does a filmmaker mean? And I'm actually going to read this right off of Google because I think this is kind of interesting. It says, a person who directs or produces movies for theater or television. And the reason I find that kind of interesting is because I do get that a filmmaker in the general sense is the person, like I said in the previous question, develops and creates films from pre-production, post-production, and on. But I've always found the term filmmaker kind of an interesting term. When I start thinking of film, of course you think of film strips or film reels, imagery like that, but I truly believe the digital era, or moving towards digital cameras, DSLRs, and the likes of those technologies, have changed it. I have nothing against film or wide format or IMAX or anything to that nature. How could I enjoy the experiences and what people do with it. It's actually because we moved away from film that so many people were able to share the content that they love to make. When you put a DSLR or a phone in someone's hand, and they have the ability to film something, record something, and share it with an audience, friends, family, that's insane to think about, because not only has the technology evolved to make it affordable for us to do it, because film itself was not cheap, but it's also kind of changed how we do things. When adding special effects, you're no longer adjusting it on the reel, but instead taking it to places like Adobe After Effects. Without getting too long-winded, what I'm saying is that when we talk about filmmaking or being a filmmaker, it more or less is kind of a thank you to the past, or looking back and appreciating where we came from and the techniques we use, because we are typically not seeing content shot on actual film. It's more of a digital data format, and it's enjoyable because so many content creators get a chance to use it and share their voice and their art with everyone else, just like I'm doing with you today. But I do think it's kind of interesting because, you know, film making and working with film. It's just, I don't think it's a thing of the past. Obviously people are still working with it now, but I think when we moved away from film into a more digital medium, although we did lose some things, we did give the ability to share a voice with everyone individually and as independent creators and beyond. But we're not done yet. So our what does a filmmaker question is kind of leading to small results. We're not getting a huge variety as of right now, so I think we're going to move this along into a different question. So moving along, we're going to actually go into how do filmmakers and then go from there. And the first one, of course, is how do filmmakers make money? So this is another broad topic because there's different avenues in which a filmmaker can make money. So I'm going to try and break it down to like 3 just to keep it simple. But 1, a filmmaker can make money off merchandise. So selling hats that have like the film's name on it, toys. You have the idea of merchandise as far as like posters or different keepsakes from the film itself, like the props. So the second way a filmmaker can make money is distribution. And distribution is a constantly changing landscape for filmmakers. So just to kind of keep that, again, a little more simple, we can make a whole video on distribution. Effective distribution, ineffective distribution, and all that. To keep it simple, filmmaking distribution can be money made through a distributor. Basically, you get your film over to them and you pay them a fee to distribute it, and then you earn the proceeds from that. And then depending on how the contract or agreement is written up, how those proceeds are divided can differ. And of course with streaming there comes other options as well, like streaming video on demand, for example, where someone can purchase the video and then the filmmaker is paid either through those purchases directly, or the video can be rented and then basically paid out by view time, by watch time. And that's kind of changing. Again, this distribution is a very changing landscape because there's options like Hulu now, there's options like Netflix, which will buy you outright depending on the project unless they invested into it. That's a whole other topic. There's Amazon, of course, where you can be paid quarterly. And a third way for a filmmaker to make money is from crowdsourcing or fundraising. So keep in mind, crowdsourcing and fundraising like GoFundMe and things like that aren't necessarily meant to be profitable. They can be, but most of the time it's for a filmmaker to just cover the base cost of getting the production to life. It's more meant to cover the expenses that go into filmmaking, like taking care of your cast, crew, having food available, craft services, getting special effects done, handling other aspects of film production that maybe the average viewers, unlike the audience of Watch Like a Filmmaker. Now, when I say crowdsourcing isn't necessarily profitable, is because truthfully, you have investors involved in it, and they owe a return. They're owed some kind of return. So you'll usually see films come up with crowdsourcing options where they're offered perks or prizes or something along those nature to thank the investor for being involved in that project. No matter what campaign it is, you'll usually see some kind of perk or tier system created to thank or appreciate their investors involved. So anytime you're thinking about participating in a crowdsourcing or crowdfunding campaign, take a look at those perks because that's kind of the filmmaker's way to say thank you for being involved and investing in their vision. And hopefully it's something you enjoy watching, but even better yet, because of your investment, you'll get to see it. But those are 3 different ways a filmmaker can make money. Is that every way that a filmmaker can make money? No, there are options and different things to consider into it as well. But that kind of gives us a base core and kind of answers that question the best way I can today. But let's continue with one more question. This is kind of an interesting question. How do filmmakers film mirrors? I think it can be a little bit more specific because a mirror is just one reflective surface. Clean cars can be another reflective surface. Polished wood can be a reflective surface. So I think it's more interesting to ask, how do filmmakers film on a reflective surface of any kind? And instead of answering that entirely right here, I think that's going to be an episode of Watch Like a Filmmaker because I think that'd be a lot of fun to show everybody how you can actually film a mirror or with a reflective surface. For the purpose of this video though, to kind of answer it for everybody, of course, one way you can do it, of course, is by positioning the camera in a way to where you see the subject in the mirror, but not the character itself. You can also use special effects to remove the camera, but again, I'm not going to get too much into all the details because I think we're going to make that a great episode of Watch Like a Filmmaker. Speaking of which, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Watch Like a Filmmaker. And I think it's been kind of fun to go through some of these questions on Google to maybe answer some popular questions about filmmaking that I don't think about or maybe address in some of my episodes. I still have a ton of ideas for episodes, and so you won't be seeing an end to Watch Like a Filmmaker if you don't comment, but I do appreciate when you guys get involved just because I get a chance to see what you guys want to know about. That way I can kind of narrow some of my focus instead of answering some broader topics, pinpointing specific niches and areas where you guys might want to know more about. But going forward, of course, we are going to continue a Saturday release, and I will continue to release episodes on Saturday. I do apologize for last week, but thank you so much for that patience and for working with me. Some of this content is a little bit harder to make, and it does involve a little bit of research when really fine-tuning the answers and going into more details so you guys get something from these videos. Even better yet, we will be changing the scenery and the setting, and I hope you guys are looking forward to that as much as I am. I definitely love change and kind of creating new concepts and working with new things for these videos. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for the channel as we continue with more episodes of Watch Like a Filmmaker. My name is Christopher, I'm the Fit Director, and thank you for being a part of this week's episode. I'll see you next time.